Cool, Vaibhav. So, generally I start by asking everyone that back when you were in your high school, coming out of your, 11th, 12th. So, at that time, what was the thought process? Like, had you already thought that you want to be into game development, game design, or was that something that came up naturally? How was it?
So this was back in 1999 when gaming was quite new in India, right? And we didn't have enough. So we didn't have two things which people at this point um, have, right? Like, so one is we didn't have internet, right? And even if people had access to that internet, there was not enough information out there. Like what you're doing right now is basically putting out there for people so that they can learn out of it and then they can pursue their careers, right? They can choose the right thing to do, which is what I also do on YouTube, right? Putting out content so that people understand. But that time in 1999, 2000, this was all not there, right? So people didn't have any idea of how games are made, at least in India, right? I was in 9th, 10th standard when my father got me a black and white PC. It was just a 486 machine. This was way before Pentium 1 came. And this was like an 8 GB RAM. And a black and white small machine, right? So I started playing. The very first game that I played was Dangerous Dave, and then I picked up Prince of Persia, Wolfenstein 3D, and all those, the very first versions of all these games, right? But slowly I got hooked onto these games and the world of games, right? So my elder brother is a mechanical engineer. He's 2 years elder than me. So when I finished my 10th, by default, being from a middle class family, had to follow his path, right? So I didn't know what to do in terms of getting into gaming industry, but because I was privileged enough that my parents wanted me to get into engineering. A lot of people at that time were not enough privileged also to get into engineering. So I didn't lose out on that opportunity. I was like, okay, fine, I can get into gaming anyhow at any given point of time in my life. And also it was quite new and an undiscovered territory that I could just stand up in front of my parents and tell them that I want to go into gaming industry. It was not that case, right? So I followed what I was supposed to do. So I took up computer technology diploma. I didn't do 11th, 12th. I just went on to do diploma. I spent 3 years in that diploma. But throughout this phase, I started, discovering more and more games. And I started to figure out what is it that fits my skill sets, right? I had no idea which language is used in making these games in terms of programming. I had no idea game design was a career. I had no idea what a game tester does. I had no idea what other aspects of the production was. But one thing that captured my attention was the artwork, right? So visually, when you are mature enough to understand that, oh, you can see 3D elements into this, and there is a software that I know which can create these 3D elements, right? So the very first instinct was, okay, to get into the gaming industry, probably I can get in if I know how to make these 3D elements, right? So that was my first thing. So after diploma, I started engineering. So because of diploma, I didn't have 4 years of engineering. I had 3 years, right? So I went on to do bachelor's in IT, information technology. And I was really good at programming as well, right? So for this 6 years, right, total 3 years of diploma and 3 years of engineering, All I did was spent a lot of time working on 3D engines, 3D software tools. So Maya, 3D Max, these were the two softwares which I self-learned myself, and polished it to a level where I could create anything in terms of modeling and texturing them, not animating, but at least modeling and texturing. So I tried to make myself skillful enough that this is a skill that probably gaming industry can use from me, and that I was making myself ready for that. And at the same time, I was also keen in exploring more worlds and creating my own characters. So I used to do that on paintbrush. I used to do like 2D characters also on paintbrush, pixel by pixel. I used to create those characters, create write the whole background story about these characters and the world around it. And I had no idea that I was actually doing something which a game designer does, right? And throughout this engineering, my all my friends were preparing for Infosys, for Microsoft, and all those campus interviews, and I was like looking for a gaming company in India. And fortunately I got I live in Mumbai, so I had there was a company called India Games, which was quite closer, like close by, not close by, but was in Mumbai, right? So that was my first and the last resort. I didn't know what I should be doing, but my only solution to my problem was, the day I finish my engineering, I'll go sit outside India Games, and anybody and everybody who comes out of India Games, I'll just get a hold of him and I'll ask him, what should I do to get inside the company? That was my only solution to my problem. Fortunately, just before my engineering exam was over, just two papers were still pending, and I saw on the internet that India Games was hiring a trainee game designer,
Oh,
and I just applied for it. My last paper was tomorrow, and on today I was sitting in India Games giving 6 interviews back to back,
oh,
cleared those, and just got my first job directly at India Games, which was kind of my dream company to work in. And that's how the journey as a game designer started. Um, so I started learning about game designing when I started working at India Games. Before that, I was just doing 3D art just to prepare myself. So that's how the journey started.
got it. Okay. And then I think after India Games, you switched into Games to Win.
Yeah, there was a lot of struggle. It was not it was not that easy. So this was 2007, a recession period.
Oh, yeah.
So I joined India Games, and in 4 months, India Games had a layoff. Like they have a big, they had a big layoff, and I was one of those people who got laid off at that time. So in just 4 months of experimenting something new, because I was from an engineering background and I was supposed to work as a programmer in a software company, whereas I was just breaking all those boundaries, trying to convince my parents in getting into gaming industry and all that chaos, and I get laid off in just 4 months. So all those dreams of getting into the gaming company were shattered, literally. I After that I tried looking out for a job in gaming industry. I didn't get. I also tried getting into programming, software developer, as a software developer, but I couldn't get a job in that sector as well. So technically, I was jobless for around 18 months, like 1.5 year. I was jobless, looking for job, and then I got another job as a programmer in a software company called Orion Pro. And in 9 months, the recession was so bad that in 9 months, this company also had a layoff.
Oh, okay.
This was the second time I got laid off from a second company. But then during that phase, right, from being jobless for 1.5 years and then 9 months working in a software company, I realized my calling. Because when I was working at this software company, I was so good at programming, but I was not interested. I was so good that a task of 8 hours, I used to just finish it in 1 hour. And the remaining 7 hours, I used to open up Unreal Engine, talk 3D, and just used to play around with one of my, use that engine, try to do a lot of things. And there was a senior guy, a senior programmer sitting next to me. Both used to, tinker around a bit in those engines. So that was something that I was doing, and I realized that programming, software, all these kind of jobs are not something that I want to do. So second company that I got laid off, I then directly went to Games to Win, begged them for an for a job. They gave me, and then then the journey continued. So there was a gap of like 2.5 years um, in this whole journey.
Oh yeah. So India Games was in 2007 and Games to Win was in 2009.
Yeah. So Games to Win was also a funny story, right? So Games to Win didn't have an opening at that time,
Okay.
and I just went into Games to Win.
Hmm.
And this was like I literally asked for the game producer to take my interview, else I was not leaving the company. So he had to sit down, take an interview, give me a test. He gave me 7 days to finish the test, and while I was leaving from the cabin, I just told this guy that he wouldn't regret this opportunity that he gives me. The guy is still like a mentor, a guru to me, because in 7 days I finished the test. I gave it back. He was impressed and he just hired me in 7 days. That's how the official journey started, where I started working as a game designer at Games to Win, progressed as an associate producer, went on to work for Hangama for a year and a half, and then started Underdogs.
Okay. So you mind mentioning the person, your mentor, who was game producer at Games to Win?
Sorry?
You mind mentioning the person who
Yeah. His name is Sitanshu Desai. He's still working at Hangama.
Okay. Anshu. Okay. Got it. So again, like after uh, Games to Win and Hangama, like that would have been a good stint where you got to professionally experience how the industry was working, right? Because of Sibeleto, it was just a 5 month stint at
Yeah,
India Games. So
yeah.
tell me a little bit about that. How was that actual experience when you started building those games and everything?
See, Games to Win, to be honest, it's a company where I learned a lot because there were a lot of things that we used to do. The team was small as a game design team, but the work that we were doing was very intense. We were working on web-based games, and we used to release one game every Thursday. And
Oh,
that was like a very aggressive approach, and we learned a lot from that whole process of creating games in just 7 days and all, publishing them. But I literally learned the whole process of making a game from scratch and then publishing it to
mm,
the market, to the consumers, getting the feedback from the consumers, iterating stuff and all that, the whole journey of making a game. So that stint at Games to Win first was about understanding the whole process, the whole business of making money through these games. And I always had this thing where I wanted to do something of my own, but the start of it, of actually starting to execute it, started at Games to Win, where I realized that this is something that I would be very much excited to do in my future. Also, there was one loophole that I tried to figure out in this. So this was in 2009, 2010, right? And gaming was picking up slowly, and there were hardly 20, 25 companies during that time. And out of those, there were like say around 5, 6 studios who were into B2B, right? Outsourcing work. There were a lot of others also, which like 2, 3 people studios who used to just keep money rolling by doing outsource work for hire thing. So while I was at Games to Win, my role was to find out vendors who can give us good quality games at cheaper rates also. And I literally found it very difficult to find these people because there were not many out there, which is what gave me an idea. Like the games were simple, the games were simple, and the games that we were actually getting from the vendors also were not really high quality also, right? So I decided to go on the other side of the table, wherein I can become that one vendor for all these bigger gaming companies who can serve them with good quality games at a cheaper rates also. So I started building a plan towards that direction. And Games to Win helped me a lot in understanding this whole business and how do I actually execute it. Um, while at Games to Win, I had everything. Like I had the whole idea ready. I had people like the senior guy that I mentioned, who was, both of us used to experiment on Unreal at that company. I convinced him to work with me. Right. So he was ready, but there was one thing which was missing, one major thing that was missing. And because of that thing, I quit Games to Win and went to Hangama. This was all about creating a great network, having exposure. So comparatively, Hangama was a huge company. There were like 800 people sitting on one floor, right? And it was more into the Bollywood side also, right? Because of the music and the vast that Hangama used to provide. So my whole objective of quitting Games to Win and going to Hangama was to go to Hangama and just try to create a network so big that I can get good amount of work from these people when I start my company. So I spent 1.5 years at Hangama just to network with people. I used to, just hang around with people, just go to. So we used to also make Bollywood and celebrity games. So even if I was not required at that places, I used to be there. I used to hang around with these people, and I used to introduce myself and all that stuff, right? So um, when I joined Hangama, probably nobody knew me. But when I left Hangama, I think half of the people on that floor knew me. So that was the whole idea. And to be honest, when I started at Underdogs after Hangama, the first few projects that I got were from these people only.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the connections that you built at Hangama.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Quite interesting. So, this also makes me think that while you were there in Hangama, you already made up your mind that you're gonna start something of your own soon, right?
Yeah.
Or, yep.
I actually, it's a funny story. So this word, right, underdogs,
Hmm.
this always was with me since my school itself. Like I was a very shy kid. Nobody actually knew me. In engineering also, I used to have like a lot of KTs throughout the span, but in the final exam, I topped the college, and so that was like my trait, right? Like not letting people believe in yourself a lot, like not overcommit. Um,
And under deliver.
yeah. So just undercommit and overperform was something that I was always into. So when I was at this software company, even before Games to Win, right? uh, on my desktop where I was to sit, I had this logo created of underdogs. I didn't know what I didn't know what I'll use it for, but I knew that this is an entity that is my future. and it has to be called Underdogs. This was like 3 years before, 2 3 years before even I thought of starting Underdogs.
Right. This was just when you were getting like entering the industry itself, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. So that's very inspiring. Like I think that there would be a lot of folks out there right now who would be willing to start something of their own, but then people don't have that courage, and that is my next question as well. That on one side, it was difficult for even you to convince your parents and make them feel that where you're going right now is the right direction.
Yeah.
And finally, you got laid off twice. You joined the third company where things were going fine. You decided to switch, and then start to like decide to start something of your own.
Yeah.
Like how sane would that look to some parents who wanted their kid to be a normal engineer, would have done a decent job in Infosys or Wipro somewhere. Like
Yeah.
how was it for them, and how difficult was it for you to manage that?
It was very difficult. I mean, to be honest, they never got convinced. But I didn't really like it. Didn't really bother me a lot because I really believed in myself, and I really, you know, I know, I know myself as a person. How committed and how determined I am. So I knew for sure that if not today, there is going to be a day where I'd be successful in what I'm doing. Because I know that I wouldn't leave any stone unturned for where I want to reach. So for the first few years, on and off, when I used to go into software company, they used to be very happy. But then when I'll tell you the incident when India Games fired me in just 4 months, right? When India Games fired me, it's like 45 minutes away from my house, right? So I took a bus and uh, came home. But throughout that journey, I was crying because this was like my dream company and all that stuff, right? I was crying the moment my mom opened the door and I told her that I was fired. She started laughing. She started enjoying because that's what she wanted, right? That's what they wanted, that I इसका अकल ठिकाने आ गया, अभी ये सॉफ्टवेयर में अपना काम करेगा. But that that quite happened quite a lot after that also. Even after I started Underdogs, for the first few years, it was like very difficult for me. But then they gave up on me, to be honest. That they knew that he'll do something of his own, and we should not really bother about him. This is what happened. Like I honestly didn't. I wasn't enough successful enough to convince them, and because of my perseverance, they were like, "ठीक है, चलो, what he'll do it." And also, I think one advantage that I had was I have an elder brother. so so for them it was like everything has to go right with the elder one. The second one is an experiment.
True that. Like he's taking, like, also the elder brother is considered to be more responsible and all, right? So like
Yeah.
they were okay, but had you been the elder one, like things would have gone more haywire.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to take such risks at all. My elder brother is literally opposite. He's like a very um, disciplined 9 to 5 guy. Had this all these checkpoints, milestones of his life at the right time, right? So getting married and all that stuff, right? So for them, it's like, so this one is experimental.
So there's this term, I came up once. I'm not sure if you've heard it already. It's called hustluencer. Person who hustle plus influencers, right? So yeah, one of those categories, like hustluencer kind of attitude. So it's difficult for parents to digest. Like at least middle class India, mein, if you have given birth to a hustler, there's a lot of difficulties that are gonna come in your life.
Yeah.
So,
So,
uh,
but if you look at the current scenario, right, there are so many things that you can actually gather, put in front of your parents and
mm,
convince them.
mm,
Because see, at like in 90s, if you would have told your parents that, I want to become a creator, a cricketer,
right,
it was kind of difficult, right? But then now you have names that you can tell. There are people who are influential in the industry right now in gaming, that people can just show what these people are doing in the industry. They are
right,
from India. They are from people like, they are from households like us who have built businesses, right? So वो नहीं था वो time पे to, कि किस दिखाए तो किसको दिखाए. Everybody was experimenting,
mm,
right?
true that. And there were not a lot of big games as well. Like there were good, decent games, but uh, now when you have like $1 billion games like GTA 5 and all,
Yeah,
so even people can show it with more confidence. यार कि मेट्रो पे literally GTA God of War की ad लग गई है पूरे मुंबई में. तो
right.
वो adaptability and उसके लिए it's little easier now than it was a decade ago. So
Correct.
makes sense. Cool, cool, Vaibhav. I think I've asked majority of questions that I wanted to ask. Gives us like ballpark whole understanding of like your journey, what happened till now. But I was just going through your LinkedIn profile, and there's this one more initiative, like Cult Tales Interactive. Do you want to quickly talk about that as well? Like what's that, and uh, what are you up to there?
So underdogs always was into B2B.
Hmm,
Um,
okay.
we've in the last 10 years we've made more than 250 games for gaming companies, digital agencies, brands, movie production houses, India and outside also. But we always wanted to make our own games.
Hmm,
Um, in 2015, we made a game called Skatelander, which was huge success,
okay.
and this was one of the few first games from India that got global recognition. Before that, Google Play and Apple never took indie game developers into consideration. They never used to feature their games also. We
Okay.
were like a wave of independent developers at that time. There were around 8-10 games from India which were really amazing. Ours was one of those. So it's called Skate Ladder. Got featured in Apple in 130 countries, on Google Play Store on 100 countries. And that one game changed the whole game for Underdogs as well. We got name, branding, money, all that stuff. Converted this small studio of 4 people into a professional company.
Oh,
Right. So we always wanted to make games which were our own games. Then we also experimented with smaller games. And then in 2018, Mukti came in the picture, and we are still into the production of Mukti. On and off, it just struggled a lot during the COVID and all that stuff.
mhm,
But throughout this phase, if you understand me as a person, I always wanted to build something which has a longer lifespan, right? One of the reason is throughout this phase from 2006-7, right? I am a very integral part of Mumbai theater also. So
oh,
I have, yeah, so I have acted and directed plays in Mumbai for 15 years now.
okay.
So that's like a like another part of my life. Weekends usually is what I am focused on, right? So um, and that all started from my college theater days, right? So there's no theater in Mumbai that I didn't perform in. Yeah, right from all the theaters. So because of this, there's this love for storytelling that I have, right?
Oh,
And I always wanted to blend these two worlds, which is where to 2021 November, we started working on this product called Story Picks, which is choices episodes for India, where there are relatable Indian stories for Indian audience.
wow.
We started building that, and I started a new entity for specifically for this one
Mm,
game. Uh, there might be chances that we might, do a lot of shuffling with both the companies, but that's still under conversation. But this whole idea of StoryPick to build a massive platform and a product which can last for, so something like a Kuku FM or a Pratilipi,
Okay.
which is a bigger lifespan, bigger value to it. At this point on StoryPicks, we have around 150 hours of content that people can enjoy. Kind of an platform, but all the stories on the platform are interactive. So
Okay.
you choose the way the story works.
Oh,
Every story has multiple endings. So kind of Bandersnatch, if you know, from Netflix, but a simplified version of it in visual novel format.
got it. Understood. Like I was about to quote that uh, Netflix series, but also like are these like just the stories where you get to choose the next path, or you also planning to make them more of like a gamified version entirely? Like
Yeah, so gamification is a part of it. So at this point, there are not many interactions, but there are interactive elements that we are slowly integrating into it. Like, just for an example, if there's a murder mystery, you as a player have to choose a gun or a knife, and then based on choosing the knife, there's a different story. So all these things are a part of it. Tomorrow we would add a lot more interaction into it.
got it, understood. Cool, cool, Vaibhav. Also got to know this new side of you. You also into acting and dramatics. Wasn't aware of this at all. Plus, you won't find it on internet. So maybe we'll put it out first reel. But have you already shared it with folks on your YouTube channel?
I think like a lot of people who know me, they know this side of the story. Where I'm so even at this point, I'm writing a play which probably would be released in next 2-3 months. Uh,
Wow.
yeah. So in fact, for the last 10-15 years, the plays that I did at a state level, they've won like around 60-70 state level awards for the shows that I've done. So it's like quite interesting. It's like a stress buster for me because
Mhm.
once you go on the stage, the people who do stage, they connect a lot to this thing because it's like a um, different experience altogether when you go on the stage.
Right? Like like it totally disconnects you from maybe from the person that you are off stage. Plus,
Yeah,
when you go on stage, like this different personality that comes out of the person.
right, right.
I get that. Amazing. Cool, cool, Vaibhav. Thank you so much for your time again. It
No,
was a wonderful chat. Thanks for your time again.
thank
Bye.
you.